there always is a next chapter. Hey there, my name is Aimee and welcome to my YouTube channel. This is a brand new channel, so I would love it if you would subscribe. I thought I would just do a video sharing a little bit about me and my background so that we can get to know each other. So I was born in Ontario, Canada in 1977. I've lived here all my life except for 1 year where I moved away to Northern Ireland, which I'll tell you about in a minute. I have a sister and a brother. My sister is 10 years older than me. My brother is 6 years older than me. And I was born on Christmas Day. If you have been born on a special holiday or a special day of the year, you know what that's like. It is literally the worst. I hate saying that because it makes my mom feel bad. But, you know, people come to celebrate Christmas, right? And it's like this big hoopla, and every kid like wants their presents and wants it to be all about them and what they're going to open and stuff. And then there's me saying, hey, it's my birthday. My mom was always amazing, and she always like threw me a birthday party in November, so that was really cool and it made it a lot better. But it definitely is difficult being born on a holiday, especially Christmas. So I grew up going to grandma's farm all the time, every summer and sometimes in the winter as well, and spent a lot of time like riding horses, playing in the barn with cousins, jumping on big hay bales. It was just like out in the country. You just could do whatever you wanted. You could roam and explore. And that was very similar to where I lived at home. One of the places where I lived, we had like 6 acres of land. And so there was some forest, and I was basically kind of like an only child because my siblings are 10 and 6 years older than me. So I spent a lot of time by myself, and I think I was really good, or became really good because I had to, became really good at spending time by myself. And, you know, it kind of shows how alone I was because I did create an imaginary friend. My name was Stacy and her name was Stephanie, and we were twins. Okay, so that probably tells you how alone I was. I had a great family, but I definitely was a bit of a loner. A bit of an introvert, if you want to label it. So I do really like being alone, and that can lead me down not the best path where I'm spending too much time alone, and then all of a sudden I'm like, oh my gosh, I have no friends. And I have to go on this whole like friend developing cycle, getting more friends, and then it seems to happen again. But I'm a little better now that I'm older. So like a lot of other kids, I did ballet and I did figure skating, and as kids we had these, we called them ATVs, like 3-wheelers, and we would go out in the country on the rolling hills and ride the 3-wheelers, you know, go snowmobiling. Like we lived on a lake at one point, and so we had a lot of like swimming and ice skating on the lake and community parties and just all that really good stuff of childhood. And I think that's where the explorer part of me really developed, the adventurer. Like I always felt like a free spirit, you know, someone who just wants to explore what's around the next corner, always looking for the next adventure, love being outdoors, hiking, biking, being in nature, anything outdoors. And then after high school, I decided that the best way for me to exercise my adventure spirit was to move to Northern Ireland for a year. And I did this with an organization, like a nonprofit, and it was to do some mission work to help youth in small inner cities that were struggling because there was this historical challenge and battle between the Catholics and the Protestants, and there had been a lot of turmoil and struggle with youth, and probably related to that history. So we went there as groups and we worked with youth in the communities and drop-in centers, in churches, and really got to know the communities over a year. We lived with, there was groups of us, so I lived with 2 other young adults, and then there was the wider group that was all split up in various places across Northern Ireland. And I have to say that was one of the most amazing experiences of my young adult life. It definitely was very difficult being away from home the first time. Having to live with people like other than my family was really difficult. And yeah, there were some challenging times. Like I found out that the 2 people I lived with were actually having a relationship in the evening when I had gone to bed early. And we weren't supposed to do that, right? So I was so mad. It's funny when you look back the things that you get upset about. That was an incredible experience, and it was amazing to be there. Probably one of the neatest things about it was just exploring the culture and seeing how people lived. And I mean, Northern Ireland isn't that different than North America, but it's different. It has different culture, different ways. The people are different. The climate is different. I always felt like really chilled and cold, and so that made it kind of uncomfortable for me. But overall, it was a very beautiful experience and helped me really, really grow, definitely. So at that point, as every young adult does, I thought I had life together. I thought I had it all figured out and things were great. And then I went home. And when I got home, I realized I did not have it figured out. I didn't know what I wanted to do with the rest of my life. My plans and thoughts had kind of changed from when I went to college for gerontology and doing programming with seniors. That was what I went to school for. And then I had this missions trip and I just wasn't sure anymore. So that's when I signed up for college. And all within a year, I started going to a new college. I met my husband and got married. Things happened really quickly. And the plot twist there is I was attending a Christian Bible college and actually got pregnant before we got married. So all of that made for a very exciting and crazy story. It was slightly traumatic for me, of course, because in that dynamic, you're in, a religious school, and that's one of the things that you're not really supposed to do. So that was definitely one of the hardest times of my life, even until today. There's another season that was really, really hard recently, which I'll tell you about, but that was probably one of the hardest seasons of my life. It was one of the hardest seasons, but it was also one of the most defining moments, and one of the moments that really just affected the rest of my life, and in a really good way, because I saw God really move in my life. He helped provide for everything. It's just a really amazing story, and I would like to share that story on another video and go into a lot of the details there. So I hope that you'll watch that video, which will be coming out in the future. So we had our first baby, which was our son, Jaden, and then about a year and a half later, we had our daughter, Simone. And my family's really cool. They're all musical. They all sing and write music and just do amazing at all of that. I'm not the musical one, but they are, and they do it beautifully. It turns out that going through something really hard makes you an expert in helping people that are also going through that same experience. And I found that really come true for me when I discovered this role to help other women who were going through a crisis pregnancy or a challenge of that nature. And I worked at a pregnancy care clinic and helped women who were going through that with support programs, with education, information, and just being there for them in that season of their life. And I feel like that experience was really monumental because I didn't really have that person necessarily when I was going through it in the same way. So just to be able to go somewhere and find people who are there for you for that specific reason was just a really amazing opportunity that I had. And again, I was able to share with other women what I had discovered, that you can go through something really, really traumatic and difficult, but it can actually be used for good in the future to help others. And it teaches you a lot about yourself and about people. And I think that is something really worth sharing with other people. That whole experience, having an unplanned pregnancy and then working in a pregnancy care center, led me in 2015 to actually start a women's event called She Speaks. And this women's event was all about women sharing their story. And we had a tagline: every woman has a story that another woman needs to hear. And the premise of the event was kind of like TED Talks, where women who had gone through something in life and come out the other side would speak and would share their story and would be able to empower other women. They would be inspired that it can be used for good in their life and they can go and help other women. And so that was a really neat season because it built confidence in me. I was able to work with a lot of women to put on this really awesome, very big event. It was big to me. Like we had 300 women come every year, and that might be small in comparison to massive events, but it was big to me at that time. And that was a really pivotal moment in my life that taught me confidence, taught me how to be really present well in front of people. It taught me how to lead a team and how not to lead a team. I learned a lot of lessons about how not to do things as well in that season. And from there, I actually developed a workshop and an online course teaching women how to write their story and how to share their story. They would come up front in the workshop and share it after they had learned to write it out. And it was just a really neat time. And I wouldn't change it for anything. So it was at that time when my career took a little bit of a change. I went back into working with seniors, which is what I actually went to school for. My education prior to going to Northern Ireland was in gerontology and doing programming and events for seniors in retirement homes and long-term care homes. And so I worked in that a bit in a long-term care home, but now I'd shifted into retirement and I was the manager of the programs in a retirement community. And so I did that for 4 years. I was in my early 40s when I was doing that job. There was a period of time, probably about 2 to 3 years, where progressively I started to feel stuck. And I didn't know what to do about it. I didn't know how to fix it. I just knew that there were a lot of things going on around me and in me, and I was feeling super stuck in my life. So my kids at this point were grown. They were beginning to do life on their own, and I'm like, they don't really need me as much or in the same way anymore. So that was difficult transition to go through. And then I was struggling with all these symptoms, which I learned later were perimenopause. But at the beginning, I had no clue what was going on because I couldn't think clearly anymore. And I was super depressed, low energy, hot flashes, sleeplessness was really bad, like waking up at 3 a.m. And all of this was going on. I'm struggling at work and I have no clue what's happening. Like I just did not clue in until I did and then realized, okay, this is perimenopause. This is a season that I'm in. I'm thinking also, like, I've had this dream to travel all my life, and I started to really struggle internally with, am I going to have to do this job for the rest of my life? This 9 to 5, give me a paycheck. I only get 2 weeks vacation. How am I ever going to travel? I can't afford it. I don't have the time to do it as much as I would like to. And it just doesn't seem like a reality that I would be able to do this dream that I had in my heart. And I hadn't really sort of like took a deep dive on how could I travel, but just over the years, always saying like to my husband, hey, it'd be so good if we could go here, we could do that or whatever. And really, like, if I look at the books, we really couldn't afford it in the way that I wanted to do it. And also the 9 to 5 job like keeps you contained, and I couldn't figure out how to make this thing work. And it was a real struggle. And at this point, when I'm saying I'm feeling stuck, I'm feeling like this dream is coming up in me again, because now I have the time to do it. My kids are grown and they're gone, and I don't have this like big focus at home. And so I could travel if I could make it work, but I couldn't figure out how to make it work. And so that was the real stuck part of my life. All of this is going on, and then all of a sudden there is like this massive shift that happens in my life. And when I was in the middle of it, it didn't feel like it was all of a sudden, but when I look back now, like it all happened pretty quickly. So all this drama is going on, and, feeling stuck and needing a change and all of that. And I'm working in the retirement home. And one day, one of the residents comes in and she hands me a brochure and says, hey, would you put these trips on the program calendar? And so I start looking through and reading and going on the website and researching, and I'm reading about these group trips. And there's this person called a tour manager that seems to be going with these people on the trips. And I just was blown away because I was like, what is this? Is this a real thing? Is this a job? Like, who is this person and how did they get to do it? And it was just like started this snowball effect in my mind of like, oh my gosh, if this is a real thing, I need to do this. So long story short, I researched the company. I did so much work on my resume, sent it in, got an interview, and got my first tour back in 2023, where I was a tour manager. I was getting paid to travel with a group of people. All my expenses are paid. The trip is paid for, and I'm going to this other country across the ocean, and I'm getting paid to do it. And this was where my whole life just completely changed, and my literal dream that I've had since I was a kid has come true. And now I travel every single month, whether it's through Canada, United States, or going to another country. So this year alone, I will have gone to 4 different countries for 16 days, 15 days, even 20 days for 20-day trips. So that whole period of feeling stuck definitely transitioned into something incredibly amazing, and I call it my next chapter because when I think back to that event that I ran and saying every woman has a story that another woman needs to hear, well, every woman also has a next chapter. You know, when you're in part of your story that's a struggle and that's a challenge, there always is a next chapter. And even in the midst of when I was feeling completely hopeless, I couldn't see how I would be able to move forward. But now, obviously, hindsight is everything. But being here now, I know there is a next chapter. And, you know, that's probably in this season of my life, one of the key inspirational messages that I have and hope to share with other women is that there is a next chapter, that you're not always going to be here in this storyline, but the storyline will change and there'll be a next chapter and you'll turn the page and it will be beautiful. And so that's why I started this YouTube channel, because I want to be able to inspire women that your story matters and that you have a next chapter. And some of the things like travel, perimenopause, you know, raising kids, just all the things that women go through. I want to be able to talk about those and share my story, and then hear other women share their stories as well, and make this a place where we can come together and connect and share our life stories together. So thank you for listening to my story, and I would love to hear any of your comments. If you want to write a comment about anything that resonated with you or you could identify with, what's your story, where are you at, what chapter are you in right now, and how could I support you? And also, I'd love it if you could subscribe to this channel, because it is a new channel and I really could use your help. So thank you so much, and thanks for listening.